If you put a ton of pressure on yourself and every little mistake feels like a huge deal in your mind, today's episode is for you because I want to help you dial down and relieve some of that pressure. Today, I'm teaching you a framework that will help the high pressure moments feel far less intense so you can take on greater responsibility and step into bigger, more complicated leadership roles and still feel able to handle all of it. Let's dive in. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Today's episode is about pressure. There are many things in your job that can create feelings of pressure. You might experience the pressure to get the words just right when you're giving an update in a big cross-functional meeting. You might feel pressure to include the right cross-functional leads on a big project that you're spearheading. As you get deeper into your career and as you rise up into bigger roles, it is very normal to experience increased amounts of pressure. The bigger the role that you're in and the more leadership that you're taking on, the more pressure you might experience. This is normal. And the good news is, even though the pressure grows as your leadership grows and as your title grows, your ability to handle that pressure can also grow in lockstep, which ultimately means that the pressure isn't going to feel quite so big. And something that I think we often underestimate when it comes to pressure, I'm laughing because I for sure do this, is we underestimate how much of the pressure is coming from us. We often think all that pressure is coming from the circumstances outside of us, but if you look more closely, you might realize that you and your mind and your emotions are playing a role in creating some of that pressure. Now, that's actually a good thing, because if we are the cause of some of the pressure, then we can also be the catalyst for reducing the pressure. If that sounds appealing to you, that is what I'm going to teach you how to do in today's episode. I'm going to teach you a simple mindset framework that is going to help you dial down feelings of pressure so that you can continue to step into bigger roles and projects while gracefully and successfully navigating the pressure and visibility and complexity and expectation that those up levels inevitably bring. So the framework that I'm going to be teaching you today is called making it wrong versus making it right. And if you are type A or a perfectionist, or you have any of those types of tendencies, then this is going to be a very important lesson for you. So I'm going to start by teaching you what it means to quote unquote make it wrong. And then I'm going to teach you what it means to quote unquote make it right. These aren't the traditional definitions that you've heard, so this is probably going to be new to you. And then I'm going to explain to you how you can use this framework to reduce the pressure that you feel day to day in your job. So let's start with me defining the first part of the framework, which is what it means to quote unquote make it wrong. So making it wrong just means that the moment something doesn't go perfectly, maybe you fumble your words, maybe you make a misstep on one of your projects, but the moment you make some sort of error, even a very small one, your brain starts firing off all of the reasons why you are wrong, why you are incompetent, why you are bad at your job, why you always mess things up. It basically starts assaulting you with ideas and reasons for why you are bad and wrong at your job. So let me share a couple examples to help bring this to life. One example would be you've prepared a presentation for a group of stakeholders. There's going to be some leaders in the audience. You're a little bit nervous. So you do your best to prepare for any tough questions that could get thrown at you so that you're not caught off guard. You give your presentation, it goes great. It's time for your audience to ask you questions, and a stakeholder asks you a question that you have not prepared. And in that moment, you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I should have prepared. Why didn't I think of this? Why don't I ever think of the obvious questions? I'm never thinking from the perspective of a leader. I don't know what to say to them. This is going to ruin a presentation that went really well. Everything was going fine, but of course, I always mess it up. That's an example of making it wrong. You're assaulting yourself with negative thoughts about you and how your badness and that incompetence created that situation. Now, that's not the only situation that would trigger you, quote unquote, making it wrong. That's just one example. Making it wrong can happen anytime you mess something up, whether you fumble your words while you're talking in a meeting, whether your boss asks you to put together a document and they're not happy with the way that you built it. Anytime you make any sort of misstep and then your brain starts generating all these thoughts about your incompetence and your tendency to make errors and how you can never get it right, that is an example of making it wrong. Now, the very interesting thing about making it wrong is that people who are very hard on themselves and who are perfectionists and who are very high achieving often have a habit of making it wrong, even when they haven't fumbled, even when they haven't made an error. So they could take an action that's totally neutral and their brain will still come up with reasons for why they're quote unquote doing it wrong. So maybe you reached out to schedule a meeting with a stakeholder, a one-on-one, and you haven't fumbled anything. No error has been made, but your brain is now making it wrong and saying you should have written a friendlier email that was too short and your tone might have sounded cold and transactional. Like, why did you do it that way? Now, there's no actual evidence that you did anything wrong. The email that you wrote might have been totally fine, but your brain is making it wrong. It's taking something neutral that you did and making it wrong. And the plot thickens because our brains are such wild and interesting creatures. But if you're very hard on yourself, your brain might also make it wrong when you have a big success and you do something that is very clearly right. So maybe you complete a big project, you get it over the finish line, and your boss says, great job on that. That was a really solid deliverable. Even though your boss is telling you that you did well, your brain might still make it wrong. And your brain might still come up with reasons why you're incompetent and not good at your job. And it might say things like, they're just saying that because they feel bad for you. That wasn't actually a difficult project. This is just empty praise. So the fascinating thing about the tendency to quote unquote make it wrong is that often we will engage in the habit of making it wrong no matter how much we are getting it right. Now, I'm sure you can start to see why this could be a really big killer of your self-confidence. If you have a mind that makes it wrong, no matter whether you actually get it wrong or whether you hit it out of the park, then you can never win. If you mess up, then you will beat yourself up internally. But if you get it right, you will still find reasons to beat yourself up internally. And this is one of the reasons that we may find ourselves on what feels like a never-ending treadmill of trying to build confidence. And it's because despite getting it right and achieving successes, we haven't changed that internal habit that we have psychologically, where our mind takes anything that we've accomplished and twists it into a negative and makes us wrong. Another important point is that if we have a habit of making it wrong, this is going to create additional layers of pressure, and it is going to greatly inhibit our ability to navigate pressure. It creates pressure because we know in the back of our minds that if we mess up, we are going to blame ourselves and yell at ourselves in our minds. And that internal knowing that we are going to suffer and experience psychological pain if we mess up puts a ton of extra pressure on us in whatever situation we're navigating. And it doesn't even matter that the psychological pain that we're anticipating is self-inflicted. We still feel pressure knowing in the back of our minds, if I mess this up, I'm going to inflict suffering on myself by saying all these negative things to myself. So it increases the amount of pressure that we feel, when what we really need to be doing is we need to be learning to decrease pressure. If we want to thrive in leadership roles, then we need to develop a mindset that helps us shrink pressure rather than grow pressure. Now, if you're picking up what I'm putting down and you're thinking, I would love to stop making everything feel higher pressure, and I'd love to do the opposite and shrink the pressure, that is what we are going to talk about next. So I've taught you the first part of the framework, which is making it wrong. Now I'm going to teach you the fun part of the framework. This part is super fun, making it right. So making it right is the opposite psychological habit of making it wrong. It will greatly improve your ability to handle pressure, and it will help you grow your confidence much more quickly. So first, let's learn what it means to make it right. Making it right is when your brain's default response to your behavior are thoughts explaining why you did it well and why you're so effective and why you're such a great leader. Here are some examples of thoughts that represent making it right. I nailed that. I'm good at this. I'm good at my job. Of course, my boss liked that. It was solid. That turned out great. That was one of my best performances. These are all examples of thoughts that represent making it right. Now, making it right is an important mental muscle to build because it has two positive impacts for you professionally. Number one, it is incredibly useful in reducing feelings of pressure. We're going to talk more about that as we get deeper into the episode. But number two, it is an essential ingredient in building confidence. If you want to feel competent and strong and capable and genuinely confident deep in your bones, you have to learn to make it right. And I want to pause on this point briefly and just share with you a trap that I do see people fall into that gets in the way of them building real, lasting confidence. It's very easy to assume that our confidence is going to come from our performance, from doing it right, from doing great work, from leading the meeting well, from creating an amazing deliverable. We assume if I do it right, I will feel confident. But if we have a habit of making ourselves wrong every time we do it right, our confidence isn't going to grow. And this is why it can feel like no matter how hard you're trying and how high your standards are, you're not experiencing that deeper internal shift that you've been craving. And part of the reason that's happening is because that deeper internal shift doesn't come from your external wins and from you doing things right on the outside. Confidence comes from our ability to internalize those wins and our ability to make it right when we get it right. So the first step is to practice making it right when you get it right. So if your boss gives you a compliment on how you executed a difficult piece of work, instead of letting your brain go off into its default thoughts of like, that's just a pity compliment, it's an empty compliment, that was an easy project, this is not a real win, what you want to do is you want to engage your critical thinking and get really real with yourself and say, hold on, let's look very honestly at why my boss is saying I did a good job and whether there might be some real justification behind that. What are some actual justifications that I can think of that would make sense for this situation? Oh, this was a very large scale project. It was one of the largest scale ones I've ever done. Yeah, it makes sense that my boss would compliment me on it. And I'm the one who did it. That was a really awesome thing that I did. Oh yeah, there were major obstacles that came up on this project and I could have stalled out, but I solved them. And that's something I did. And so, yeah, it makes sense that my boss is complimenting me on this. So we have to slow down and really learn to make it right when we get it right. That is a prerequisite that you have to be able to do if you want to grow your confidence and if you want to be able to handle higher pressure. But the situation doesn't end there, because the true key to being able to step into bigger leadership roles, step into more visibility and feeling more exposed, step into higher pressure is to learn the art of making it right when you get it wrong. Now, if you have a high achieving perfectionist brain and you're the type of person who hates getting it wrong and wants to always get it right, and your brain is imploding at the thought of learning to make it right when you get it wrong, then this episode is even more for you, and it's even more important for you to hear this message. Just because you mess something up, just because you make an error or a misstep or you fumble or you say the words wrong, doesn't mean you have to make it wrong in your mind. And in fact, you have the option of making it right in your mind, even though you got it quote unquote wrong. And this ability to make it right when you get it wrong is what helps you build confidence and what helps you navigate enormous amounts of pressure without feeling crushed by that pressure. So the best way for me to explain this to you is through a personal example. So one situation from my corporate career, because I was in the 9-to-5 world before I became a full-time coach and podcaster, one situation from my corporate career that used to cause me to really make it wrong was anytime I was working on any sort of complex, ambiguous, cross-functional project, and I had to make tons of micro decisions about how to run those projects. A lot of the projects that I worked on were ambiguous. It wasn't clear who should be involved and how and when. They were projects that hadn't been done before. So I had to make a zillion judgment calls on how long this is going to take and how we're going to do this and who's going to be in the kickoff and who's going to be on the working team and who are the approvers. And as I got promoted into higher titles, I was expected to make these decisions. And at first, it would feel really overwhelming to me when I'd make one of those decisions, and then it would turn out that I made the decision wrong. So maybe I would decide who should be on the steering committee, and I would get that going. And then I'd get an email from my boss or from someone in the organization saying like, no, we can't have this person here, or like, you forgot this person, or you set this up wrong. And I would make myself wrong when that happened. And I would think, I'm so bad at this. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't handle leadership. I don't have good judgment. I don't have the same instincts as other people. And that would create a ton of pressure. Every time I had to make another one of these decisions, I knew in the back of my mind, if I mess this up, my mind is going to full on assault me for messing it up. And it's going to feel really bad and intense. And that took a situation that was already laden with pressure, and it made the pressure feel bigger. And one of the big things that helped me transition into larger roles and have this bigger scope of responsibility was learning to make it right whenever I got it wrong. So anytime that I would make some sort of misstep and then find out that I did it quote unquote wrong, instead of telling myself how horrible and incompetent I am, I would practice thinking things like, I am super agile. I formed this steering committee quickly because that's what's required in my role. So of course, I'm not always going to get these right on the first try. That's why I'm in this role. They need someone who will put pen to paper and make a bold decision. Oh, this stakeholder is mad because I didn't include their team. Cool. Like, I'm in this role because people trust me to handle those dynamics. I am great at navigating these stakeholder scenarios, and I'm the one who can hold all this complexity. So anytime that I would quote unquote get it wrong, I would practice making it right. Now, one of the reasons that this is so powerful is because when we learn to make it right, even though we got it wrong, it calms the emotional intensity of those moments. They go from feeling really big and really dire to feeling just like business as usual. And what starts to happen is we become less afraid of making mistakes. The consequences of making a mistake feels less scary, which equips us to take more risks, step into bigger leadership, and handle greater amounts of complexity. I see a lot of people falling into the trap of thinking that good leadership is about them getting it right all the time, and that that's what's going to make them a good leader. And they think that the other leaders around them are also getting it right all the time. This is untrue, and this creates more pressure and sets us up for failure. Good leadership and the leaders around you aren't getting it right all the time. They are making it right all the time. They get it wrong constantly, but they quickly make it right in their minds. They don't spiral emotionally. They bounce back and they keep moving forward. There is no such thing as a high-level leadership role where you will have clear step-by-step instructions, clear guidelines, and clear metrics for success, where all of that stuff is so crystal clear that you won't ever make a mistake. Inherent in leadership roles is vagueness, ambiguity, subjectiveness, stakeholders wanting conflicting things. Even if you did everything in your role perfectly, you would still get things quote unquote wrong because sometimes one stakeholder wants the opposite of what another stakeholder wants. So there's going to be some fallout or there's going to be some disappointment. So the solution then can't be that, I'm going to always get it right and make everyone happy. The solution has to be whenever this happens, whenever I get it wrong, whenever someone's upset, whenever I mess it up, whenever I fumble, whenever I say the words wrong, instead of making it wrong, I make it right. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I fumbled, I sounded so stupid, everyone's going to think that I'm so bad at this, I say to myself, I am so locked and loaded on my materials that I don't even care that I fumbled, and I just keep going and I just keep talking, and that's what makes me a badass. So truly, we can choose how we want to respond to these situations. And a core piece of what makes someone a good leader is that when things go wrong, they don't fall into making it wrong. When we spiral into making it wrong, it's really hard for us to pick ourselves back up and move through a difficult situation. So I have a few invitations and next steps that I want to challenge you to do as a result of listening to this episode. Number one, I challenge you to shift your goal from I want to always get it right to I want to always make it right. Instead of expecting yourself to take the perfect, correct action every time, expect yourself to make mistakes and have fumbles, but challenge yourself to make it right and to find thoughts that make you feel like a badass even when that happens. And the second takeaway I want to leave you with is you have to first learn to make it right when you get it right before you can get good at making it right when you get it quote unquote wrong. If we're unable to feel good and internalize our accomplishments and really think of ourselves as capable when we have big evidence of a win, it is sure as heck going to be super hard for us to feel capable and feel like a badass in the moments where we mess it up and get it wrong. So I want you to think of learning to make it right when you get it right as a prerequisite for a deeper level of confidence that comes with the more advanced goal of learning to make it right when you get it wrong. And if you have a perfectionist brain, I know for sure that your perfectionist brain is going to want to resist this because mine did. And I work with so many women who are perfectionists, and we just want to find a way to be perfect and always get it right. The sooner you let go of that, though, the sooner your life will change. Being the person who is thinking about how awesome they are as a leader, even when they're messing things up, is so much more fun than being the person who is terrified and paranoid about messing things up because they can't handle all of the negative emotions that it creates. So I'll leave you again with this closing thought, which is instead of trying to always get it right, try to always make it right. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this both inspired you and gave you permission to be messy and mess things up, because that is also part of the game. And if you're feeling like you want to do deeper work to grow your confidence and become the type of leader who isn't afraid to mess up, I want to invite you to come work with me. The main way that I coach my clients is inside my signature program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy. Inside this program, I lead you through my curriculum for building deep inner confidence and learning to speak with the crispness and authority of a seasoned leader. If you want to feel that confidence on the inside so that you exude big confidence on the outside, that is the exact work I help you with inside this program. To learn more about the Art of Speaking Up Academy, click the link in the show notes or go to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. I strongly recommend adding yourself to the waitlist because those on the waitlist are always first to find out when early enrollment opens. And when you enroll early, you get exclusive bonuses. And I rotate the bonuses, but they can sometimes include a private session with me or a bonus workshop. So you don't want to miss joining the waitlist. I will drop the link in the show notes so that you can add yourself. And thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun, and I'll catch you in next week's episode. Bye.